What's up guys, Jameson Redding here with the Road Trip Angler, and today I want to share a quick tip with you on how to utilize a motor on your kayak to make more cast when you're fishing a river. There's no doubt that when it comes to really any type of fishing from a vessel, whether it's a kayak or a boat, that boat or kayak or your vessel's position is going to lead to more fish catching. Is you have to be able to maintain your boat and where it's located so that you can make cast into that strike zone. Now this doesn't really matter if you're on a lake or if you're inshore fishing, offshore fishing, if you're trying to stay over a wreck or a structure that's submerged under the water, or you're in a river where you have a lot of current and moving water. Being able to hold that boat where you want it so that you can make those casts into that strike zone and not go over or on top of those fish is super key. When it comes to river fishing specifically, you're dealing with a lot of current, and a lot of times you're looking for those seams or eddies in that current, so those breaks in the current where the fish tend to stage up. One of the really big advantages to having a motorized kayak is that you can really dial in that boat position. There are options like having a bow mount trolling motor that has spot lock and things like that. However, I don't find that to be the best option for river fishing. And when I'm talking river fishing, I'm very specifically talking about shallow moving water where you do have some shoals and you have some rocks and you have those visible eddies and current breaks and seams where the faster current kind of meets the slower current. Maybe you have even some exposed boulders, or you've got some wood that it's fallen on the sides of the riverbanks, and those areas are creating those pockets that are going to hold the fish. If you can actually rig your boat out with a motor, a stern mount motor like what I have here, which is the Torqeedo 1103, it's really going to increase the ability to make more cast and stay in that proper boat position or that proper area longer, allowing you to get your bait out there more and keep it in the strike zone better. So how do you do that?
Torqeedo, engage.
Well, number one of the big things that you really need is to be able to keep your hands free. And while, like I mentioned, you can have that bow mount motor to do that, the bow mount motor has its challenges. One of those is it's locked in the down position, meaning that if you come in contact with the bottom or an obstacle, it can't fold up out of the way unless you physically climb up there and fold it up. And that's fine when you're in deeper water, but if you're constantly coming to shoals and things, you really want your motor to be able to kick up. So one of the things you can do, especially with a stern mount motor like the Torqeedo here, is you can leave that motor loose and not lock that reverse lock, so that if you do come in contact with the bottom, the motor can simply kick up. And that's going to be perfectly fine unless you're actually trying to go into reverse, which you have the reverse lock if you need to do that. But I tend to leave that unlocked, and that way if I come in contact with something, it can fold up. Another thing you can do to protect the motor, and we'll get into how to use this, as you can see on my Torqeedo, I actually have a rock guard, and that rock guard is made by a company called Innovative Sportsman. I actually purchased that. They didn't pay for this video or anything, but having that on there just gives me peace of mind that my prop is going to be protected. Now the prop's super durable, and the motor itself, especially the 1103, is super durable, and you'll notice that I've beaten the paint off of the skeg that's under there and the rock guard, and my prop does have some wear on it. And that's because I use this in rivers that have rocky bottom structure. They've got places where the motor's dragging, and a lot of times I'm running upriver against the current. And so I want to get into that now. Fish in a river, as I mentioned, hold to those areas where you have current breaks or current seams. They may feed in that whitewater in that more aggressive current, but they are going to take rest or even sometimes stage in those areas where that current seam is. And when they do that, they face into the current. They're waiting on their meal to come to them, or they're waiting on bait or whatever it is that they can run into those places and kind of corner them and be able to ambush. So it doesn't really matter what species of fish you're targeting. If it's in moving water, that fish is going to be facing into the current upstream. So do you want to bring your bait upstream coming in behind the fish, or do you want to bring your bait kind of downstream with the current? Obviously you want to bring it downstream with the current. A lot of times if you're bringing it in from behind them, well, that's just not something that they're used to. Bait doesn't chase them, it's the other way around. So that can actually spook fish. And in clear water conditions, you can see that happen sometimes. Now, I'm not saying you're never gonna catch a fish if you're casting down current and bringing it back against the current, because you will catch fish. But typically the fish are facing upriver. They're always facing upriver. So you wanna cast your bait up current and bring it back down. And you wanna sneak up on the fish from behind. If you're floating down a river and you float across or over top of that section that's holding those fish, you may spook them and that may keep them from eating. So a lot of times you can single access by utilizing the motor, or you can actually kind of go down on an area where you think the fish probably aren't holding, turn around and hold position and fish the area where the fish should be, or the fish are being held by that structure or whatever it is creating that current break. And the motor comes in super handy when you're doing that. And the way that you can do that and stay hands-free is to rig up some type of foot steering. And this is why I say in a river situation, the stern mount motor excels, because you can actually control the boat constantly moving your feet back and forth slightly to hold in that current. And even in pretty strong current sometimes, allowing you to make those casts and really be able to work that area well. The other thing you could do is set up a bow anchor or bow mounted anchor for this, and that would allow you to face upriver, but then you have to deal with anchoring in moving water, and sometimes that can be, not the best idea. I don't recommend anchoring in very swift water. So you really have to use judgment when it comes to that, because you can get yourself into trouble and you need to be able to release that anchoring stuff. The other thing that you can do with a motorized setup is you can actually single access. Now, I've done this before where I've put in places, I've paddled against the current upriver and been able to make it, a decent amount before I'm like, okay, I'm tired of paddling, it's time to fish. And then you end up back where you put in at. So you're going upriver and then you're coming back to that access. You're not having to set up a shuttle. Well, with the motor, a lot of times you're able to cover so much more river that way, and you can fish your way up. Now, you don't have to worry about floating across those fish and scaring them or spooking them before you actually even get to cast at them. So you can always approach the fish from behind and be able to make those casts upriver and bring that lure down into the strike zone and really pick apart and work an area of water. Now, if you're in really super shallow water, obviously the motor can be cumbersome because you're gonna be dragging it or having to keep it up a lot more, but most rivers are gonna have enough water because you can set it really shallow, add the rock guard, get upriver, get to those spots, hang out, make more casts, and catch more fish. Now, as I mentioned, there can be a couple of disadvantages to motorizing a kayak, and weight is probably one of them. Even though it's pretty lightweight battery and pretty lightweight motor, it does add a little bit more time rigging and a little more weight to the boat. And if you're really accessing somewhere where you have to drag your boat a lot, that you can't beat a throw and go or an inflatable kayak, something light, something that's versatile that you can get you in the water and off the water very quickly and around places that you have to drag the boat. But being able to put in somewhere, single access, go upriver, approach those fish better and spend more time, it's a huge advantage if you're a river fisherman like myself. And it has really changed the way I dissect and just catch more fish in general when I'm out there on the water. The other thing that you got to keep in mind is that depending on your state and those regulations, you're likely going to have to register your kayak. It's not a very big deal. Most kayaks have a manufacturer certificate of origin, which is really all you need to take. That, along with usually a bill of sale or something showing that you actually own that vessel when you go to get it registered. Now, every state's different, but again, it's really not that complicated. Here in North Carolina, you can actually get your boat registered for 3 years at a time, get your numbers and put them on the side of the boat just so that you have all that paperwork taken care of, and it's really inexpensive to do that. So hopefully this tip helps you take advantage of some of the things that are out there for you. I mean, it's gotten a lot easier and a lot more inexpensive to be able to rig up a kayak with a motor. And if you're river fishing like myself, you really can't go wrong with finding a motor that you can mount on the stern of the kayak that will allow you to be able to make more casts. Hopefully you like this tip, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel and support our mission to get people outside and on the water and help you make better decisions when it comes to rigging out your boats, rigging out your kayaks, and just fishing in general. We really appreciate the support, and we couldn't do it without you guys supporting it. So again, hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Road Trip Angler would like to thank our global partners for helping support the mission to get people outside and on the water.